How's it going, guys?
Good, good.
Oh, you have a very cool room, man.
Yeah,
Thank you very
awesome.
much. Thank you very much. Guys, first of all, I love the first two episodes. I love Miss Marvel. I love what you've done with the project, and what people at the audience at my channel won't get to hear, but what I did during the press conference was you guys went to Kevin Feige and said, hey, we need these formalistic elements. We need these on-screen graphics. We need to tell her point of view, Miss Marvel's point of view, in a more charming way. Can you guys talk about that and why you felt that way so strongly? And it's groundbreaking for MCU. So if you guys could share your thoughts.
Well, for us, I mean, we love the aesthetic of the comic book of Miss Marvel and the vibrant colors, but we wanted to try to find a way to how to translate the imagination of Kamala Khan and her dream world and a fantasy world on screen. And the animation was not in the script or in the concept, so we loved Into the Spider-Verse. That was like, we were wondering what would it be if you had a live action version of that. And obviously Scott Pilgrim is also a big reference to that. But we were a bit afraid that Marvel would say no, because like you said, it's not in the other MCU shows or movies. So we did a whole presentation with examples of what kind of animation it had to be with like stop motion, but also things on the wall and all that, and showed it to Kevin and said, it needs to be a part of it. It needs to be Kamala Khan's journey through her eyes and in her mind. And surprisingly, they said yes. They said don't do too much, don't go overboard, but go for it. And that's how they allowed us to really use that aesthetic and have the opening stop motion animation and the murals and the text messages and the fantasy sequences. It was a great privilege and pleasure to be allowed to do that in the MCU.
That's amazing. Adele and Bilal, let me ask you, for fans who are familiar with your work, who sort of saw that you guys might be directing Miss Marvel and maybe wondered, where are all the gunfights going to go? What about this project really appealed to you in telling Miss Marvel's story, maybe in a way that's a little less violent than some of your normal endeavors in film?
Yeah. When we read Miss Marvel, the comic book, we just fell in love with Kamala Khan and her family and the world, and it really personally connected with us because we're Moroccan Belgians and we were between these, between the Moroccan and Belgian culture when we were teenagers, the same way like Kamala Khan is between the American culture and the Pakistani Islamic culture. And for us as Muslim, it was so refreshing to see this world that we never saw, like certainly not in the superhero world. And I think that personal connection really made us passionate. But at the same time, what I really love about this is that it's just a teenager story. It's about somebody who tries to find his way in the world, try to have search identity, and it's this coming of age story that I think the whole world, no matter which race, gender or religion, you can relate to, and that universal aspect makes it so big. But at the same time, you have that specific story about this Pakistani teenage girl from New Jersey.
Right. And one of the things I would say is a theme through some of the stories that you guys have directed is the bonds of loyalty between characters, really supplementing sometimes how family should and could be, even between people who may not be blood related, that there's this universal story that we all can relate to. And speaking of which, the MCU can be super daunting waiting your way in as a new director with already so many established franchises and established characters. So what is it for you guys going in with Miss Marvel that sets her apart, but also made sure you had to include so that she can go forward into this world and retain what's truly hers and unique, but also play amongst the rest of the characters?
What was great about her is that obviously, she's this Pakistani Muslim American girl, which is like a very singular identity. It's different from the other characters. So you're going to see a lot of her culture and the Pakistani culture, Islamic culture, which is a lot of connection with us being Moroccan Belgium. We used a lot of our inspiration of our family dynamic and just the religious parties and going to the mosque and all that. So you have all of that aspect to it. But it's really like, Kevin Feige wanted us to focus really on her story and on her world, and that's why you have her friends, Nakia and Bruno, and you have her family that is very important in that show. So obviously it is an MCU show, it is a superhero story, but the core, her real superpowers, it is the love of her family and her friends, and I think that is a bit refreshing to have this coming of age story of a teenager, this family and friends story that we then connect to the larger MCU.
That's amazing. Guys, thank you so much for your time today. I'm so stoked for Miss Marvel. Congratulations with everything, and I can't wait for the fans to see it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You guys have a great one.
Peace and
Thank
love,
you.
bro.
There you have it, guys. That was my interview with Adil El Arbi and Belil Falah. They were the directors on episodes 1 and 6 for Miss Marvel. And really, it was an absolute blast to interview these two, especially after the press junket you guys heard me mention in the first question. It was so obvious that everyone involved with this project was extremely passionate about taking what they loved from the comics and translating it into the show. Speaking of which, I also had a chance to sit down with the director on episodes 2 and 3, Meera Menon. I'm going to go ahead and play our interview for you now. Hey, Meera, how's it going?
Hello.
Thanks so much for taking time to join me today. I really appreciate it.
You've got all kinds of stuff in your background.
Yeah. I go a little hard. So I know this is an underhand question, but I also know that sometimes interviewers don't always ask that key question. So what attracted to you to Miss Marvel in the first place, having done what you've done in film over the last 10 years? What about this project makes you want to direct it?
I just wanted to be a part of it in any way I could, because I knew how significant it was going to be for so many people in terms of representation. Like it's a South Asian, Pakistani, Muslim girl, kid of immigrants, growing up in Jersey City, just trying to figure out who she is and what her place in the world is. I think that story is going to be relatable to so many people, but I certainly think as someone that didn't see anything on TV, even remotely close to, the way I saw myself, like it's having seen no mirrors, having seen no reflections of my own experience in TV, movies, pop culture in general growing up. When this comic came out, I was kind of blown away that this thing existed, and was completely charmed by it and loved the character immediately. And so all of those things just made me want to be a part of it in any way that I could be.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Speaking of being a part of it and finding your way in terms of Miss Marvel, you yourself didn't originally think about going into film at all. On your IMDb profile, it says that your dad inspired you as a kid, but suggested, like many other young artists, probably their father said, "Hey, do it as a hobby." You went to college, did something else, but here we are. So
yeah.
How did this all come into your life, and what was the impetus really for you to embrace directing as a career?
It's funny. This is also the part of Kamala Khan's story that feels so relatable to me. This feeling that what you want to do feels so cosmic and head in the clouds, as her mom says at the end of episode 1. Like that's definitely what Hollywood and filmmaking was to my family. Like I feel like when Muniba asks Kamala that is such that there's such resonance for me in terms of what my parents asked of me when I said I wanted to be a director.
Yeah, for a lot of young artists, I'm sure. Yes.
Yeah. But I chose to be cosmic. Yeah, like Kamala. Yeah. I mean, I chose when it was hard, and it certainly, like wasn't a sure bet, but it was a matter of just like trying to learn as much as possible and learn by doing as much as possible. I mean, no one just gives you, a kind of blank check to make the movies you want to make and do whatever you want to do in this business. You have to earn it for sure. And so I think that's just eventually I was just like, well, I can't do anything else. I literally like cannot make myself do anything else. I think that's the point Kamala gets to too,
And I think for any artist who's gone for it, they can empathize with that sentiment when it gets to the point that you just have to do it because that's who you are. That's a realization of truth, and that's awesome. And I think that translates into the episodes a lot. Speaking of which, wading into the Marvel Cinematic Universe that is already as established as it is, not only how familiar were you with the Marvel proper and then the MCU Cinematic Universe, but did you brush up on it? And where do you think Miss Marvel really plays into the greater cinematic picture of the MCU?
How do I think she's a stand-in for the audience, right now in this season. Definitely where I encountered her early on in the season, she's an absolute stand-in for the audience. She's really existing outside of it and finds herself, much like Iman as a super fan found herself suddenly a part of it. Kamala finds herself suddenly a part of it as well. So so I'm excited to see where that goes. I'm excited for those first moments when Kamala meets her idols, like what that's going to be like. But in terms of I mean, I had a very, like I had probably your average person, average moviegoer's relationship to the MCU.
Sure.
For a while. I mean, I loved the comics, but I had seen the Iron Man, I'd seen Guardians of the Galaxy, Doctor Strange. There were certain ones that I had seen and loved. But then of course, when I got the opportunity to potentially be in the room on this, I educated myself on the whole thing.
Absolutely. And there's a lot. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Great job with Miss Marvel. I can't wait for the fans to see it.
I'm glad you seem to be a very credible source there with your fandom. So I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. All right. Have a good one. See you soon. Huge thank you to Meera, Bilal, and Adil for sitting down with me. I really appreciate it, guys. I know you guys are slammed and in the multiverse of media out there. Really huge thank you to Disney and Marvel Studios for talking to us, the little guy. The huge takeaway here, guys, is that everybody involved with this project, all the way to Miss Marvel herself, Iman Vellani, they are all super fans of the project. These are the people that we want working on this stuff, not some suits who know nothing about the IP like the way it was over at Fox. And in a world where there are a ton of new characters still to come and a ton of new ground to cover in the MCU, Marvel Studios continually keeps putting the right people in charge of it, and it makes me so excited as a Marvel fan. That's what you want. You want other fans in charge of this property. It's what Disney's doing with Star Wars. It's what they continue to do with Marvel, and I am so hyped. Miss Marvel comes out on the 8th. Be ready for it. We will be doing the watch parties, the normal hype here at the channel. Of course, as always, if you're a fan of this kind of content or if you appreciated today's video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to keep up with all the content. But if you don't, it's all good. We're big chillin'. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.